My next guest is a very talented singer and songwriter who just released his debut EP called Sunburn. It is Luke Wild. Luke, how are you?
What's up, man? Thank you for having me.
Right off the bat, I got to ask, you have such an amazing name, Luke Wild.
Yes, sir.
It's like the perfect stage name. My name is Pete Marr. These two syllables is perfect for
Yeah.
these kind of things. Is
Yeah.
this your real name? I mean,
Yes, sir. It's the real name.
unbelievable.
Yes, sir. I know people. It's funny. Growing up, no one ever asked me if it was my real name, but out here, everybody asked me that, and I do make sense. I guess a lot of people have stage names, but yeah, it's my real name, family name.
That's awesome. With a name like Luke Wild, there's so many different things that you can do. You're obviously doing music right now, but I understand that you were an avid skateboarder growing up in Florida. Did you have aspirations to become Luke Wild, sponsored by some energy drink?
Man, it's funny. I was always the worst skater in my crew. Like, I was not good. I think I was like the most, like, I would always go for it, but I would never make it. So I always tell people I wish I would have been a filmer. I think I would have been I think if I had done the filming my friends that were better, I think it would have been better. But yeah, man, when I was a kid, my oldest friends were all like really good, and I was like, of course, wanted to be a pro skater, but I was not good enough at all. So once I found out, I was like, I've made the switch,
What was the music that you were exposed to during that time? Because as a skater, you kind of either A, associated with hip hop and rap, or B, the punk rock music scene.
I think it was both. I think once I got like an iPod, when I was really young, like 9, 10 years old, and then I had that freedom to that was like my hobby. I would go home, and both of my parents worked and my siblings went to a different school. So I'd be home and I would have a few hours and I would just go on iTunes and just listen to that. I think through that I discovered sort of both, on all genres, and then also just having friends that turned you on to like local bands and stuff like that was really tight. But it was both, man. I like both equally.
Who were some of your favorite artists growing up?
I really, really liked, weirdly enough, bro, I've been listening to this more, a lot of Coldplay, which is, I know, not punk or anything, but just, I think that sound is like really coming back. I was actually listening to them right before we got on this call. There was a alternative band called Berlin that was like local guys that kind of made it out and got like the record deal and all that stuff. So I would go see their big shows, and that was really inspiring. They were my favorite. I listened to a lot of R&B. Like, there's an artist named Maxwell that I really, really love, Music Soul Child, because I played a lot of gospel music growing up. So with playing with those, with like those musicians and stuff, I got turned on to like a lot of R&B music. So I would say that's kind of the three, kind of the main kind of worlds I was in. And then when Drake and like Young Money came out, that was like all me and my friends used to listen to as well.
Having that type of exposure to all this music,
Yeah.
it makes it very interesting in terms of trying to forge your own path.
Yeah, that's a great question, man. I think that as you grow with music, and I still feel like I don't know anything. You know what I'm saying? I feel like I still like I learn every day. But there were certain artists that I would hear that I felt like were so invested in their own identity that it kind of changed the musical landscape. You know what I'm saying? A good example, I think, would be like when Frank Ocean put out Blonde in 2016. Like, everybody who I know, that was like a life-defining record, and it didn't necessarily fit in a genre necessarily of like top 40 pop or something like that. So realizing like that and just starting to like study the music that like moved me the most, and I was like, I decided I was like, I want to make music that is like that, if that makes sense. So that kind of helped. That kind of helped with like the theme of it, and then as far as like the sounds, man, I just was like, what do I like to listen to right now, and that's the kind of music that I try to make, or like what would I like to listen to next year or something like that. That's kind of the way I think about it.
There's definitely a vibe on this EP, man. Congrats on the release of this.
Man, thank you. That's crazy.
I am so into it. When I first heard it, I was like, man, how come I have not heard of this guy before? And then I listened to songs like Easier to Lie and Everything Is So Hard. And it's just the timing of it all, I suppose. But man, it just really hit me in the feels. And I think a lot of people as well. When were these songs written, and what were you going through during the writing of some of these songs?
Yeah, Easier to Lie was just Man, I just feel like as a you know as a it's maybe a little bit more common. I don't want to speak for everybody, but as a male, I have sometimes I have a hard time. I maybe overexpress myself emotionally, but at the same time have a lot of walls up, and particularly at that time I was in a relationship, and it was just like it was one of those sessions, man, where I was with someone, a producer named Luke Fitton, who we have the same manager, man. He's from London. He was in America for like a week, and I just came to him and I said, hey, I have this idea for this kind of synth patch, and I want to do a song where the pre-chorus sounds like Nirvana, but then the hook comes in and it sounds like kind of dancier, like Britpop. And he was like, what? This kid is off of his rocker. And man, we made that song very quick. It was one of those days where it was just great energy, and I kind of came in and I had that hook written before with my good friend Yoshi Flower, and that was just it, man. It was just the fact that when someone asks you how you're doing, in order to keep the peace, you just sometimes, have a strong face. And it was really that simple. But I didn't realize that, people, it's cool when people hit me up and say like what you said. And then with Everything Is So Hard, man, that was written pre-COVID. And I'm just being honest, man. I was just driving around at Los Angeles, man, just broke, and I was just driving, and I was like, man, everything is so hard. And then I just wrote it in my notes. And then that day I had actually made an instrumental for another artist, and she liked it, but she wasn't going to keep it. And I really liked it. And the next day I just went in, and it was one of those days too, man, where it was just kind of one day, man. And Everything Is So Hard, I think, was more lighthearted, kind of about being young and being vain. And kind of eye rolling, like Everything Is So Hard. But I think now it's taken on a little bit of a different.
Yeah, I think for me, those two, I think, have definitely taken on new meaning in light of what's been going on this year, right? Because people have noted about how difficult the pandemic and the calls for social justice and all the things that have been happening this year. Do you find it difficult to dig deep into your feelings and become that open and vulnerable?
Man, you ask great questions. With songwriting, I would say no. I would say that's like I just feel safe, And I think that in everyday life, I think because of the nature of what I do doing music, I meet a lot of people, and sometimes I wasn't necessarily primed maybe for being in this world of meeting so many people and having so many relationships. And I think coming into it, I originally thought like, oh, everybody I work with is going to be my best friend. And I've learned to kind of be a little bit more, in a safe way, kind of guarded, you know what I'm saying? But to those people that I am really close with, I'm definitely trying to be more vulnerable. But I think music is where I feel 100% free to be vulnerable, because there's maybe no one there listening until after the fact. Like they're listening and I don't have to be there,
It's always fascinating to me because you see artists, and I'm just going to cherry pick here, a Selena Gomez type, right? She's out in the public, her personal life's all over the place, and she puts out a song, immediately people are like, oh, I know what that's about. And I just find that so difficult, I'm a little bit more of an introvert, so I like to keep my feelings to myself and have my close circle around me. And I can just imagine as an artist how to try to come up with metaphors and say, okay, this is the song, this is how I'm feeling, but you interpret it.
Yeah, and it's funny too. I think sometimes you create something and then you didn't know that that's what it meant to you, and then afterwards, like you said, like the feelings evolve, So that's what I love the most. But yeah, I would agree. In my private life, I am a little bit more, private, but with the music, it's like, I feel like there's a response, for me at least personally, there's a responsibility to be 100% like, this is exactly how I'm feeling, and I feel like that I'm hoping that will connect with people the most,
Well, I am a big fan of your music. We can't wait for the new stuff, but in the meantime, this debut EP is just fantastic. Congratulations on that.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate
your time for the chat.
Absolutely. Anytime. We'll have to have it next time.